Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Apocrypha Apocalypse. I'm Gary Machuda, and I am super psyched for this new series of videos that I'm going to produce that's going to be on the cessation of prophecy theory. Now, this is a theory that's often propounded as something obvious, well-founded, but exactly how well-founded is it and how obvious is it? Well, we're going to look at that. We're going to look at all the evidence both for and against the theory in this series. And I'm going to give you some information that chances are you probably would never get in other apologetic sites and videos. So fasten your seatbelt, folks, because the Apocrypha Apocalypse is about to begin. Okay, what is the cessation of prophecy theory? Well, there's different ways of defining it. In fact, you'll find that almost everybody has their own particular view of what exactly is entailed in this theory, which makes you wonder where exactly is the evidence for this theory if it's so ill-defined. Well, I want to play video. I'm not picking on this video. I actually like it. It's very well put together. It's a nice presentation. And he just gives you a very quick snippet of the cessation of prophecy theory. The video, by the way, is titled The Truth About the Apocrypha and the Lost Books of the Bible. It's put out by World Video Bible School on YouTube. It's got a lot of hits, so it's very popular. And like I said, I think he does a good job. I'm going to take two clips from this video. The first one is where he lays out the 400 years of silence, and then he revisits it later. So I'm going to then flip to later around the 14-minute mark, 14:30, where he addresses it again. So let's take a look.
All of these Old Testament apocryphal books are believed to have been written sometime between the time of Malachi and the life of Jesus. Now, friends, that is very important because that is after the time that the Old Testament had been completed. In fact, it's the time period commonly known as the silent 400 years because no prophets of God were writing during this time. And incidentally, Josephus and numerous other sources indicate that the Jews rejected any writing after the time of King Artaxerxes, which is the time of the book of Malachi. The Babylonian Talmud stated, after the latter prophets departed, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi, the Holy Spirit departed from Israel. Okay, that's reason number one.
Okay, so there's 400 years of silence that ends with Malachi, begins with the New Testament. Notice this is a Christian conception, right? Because Jews would not say that it continued again at the time of Jesus. Where did this idea of 400 years of silence, what's the foundation for it? And more importantly, what do you mean when you say the cessation of prophets or the cessation of prophecy? In fact, I've heard it pronounced both ways. What exactly is going on here? Well, if someone brings this up to you, I think you should ask them to define terms because the meaning of those terms isn't self-evident. And let me explain what I mean by that. There's many different things that could be meant when you say all prophets or all prophecy ceased. For example, let's focus on the term prophecy. When you say prophecy or prophets ceased, what do you mean? All prophecy whatsoever ceased at some time in the past? Or all prophecy coming from people publicly known as prophets ceased at some time in the past, but it continued through people who weren't known as prophets? Or all prophets ceased and therefore prophecy ceased as well? Or the great prophets of the past like Isaiah, Jeremiah, Malachi ceased, but lesser prophets continued with prophecy? Or at the prophets that are included within the second division of the rabbinical Bible, the Tanakh, known as the prophets, that no further writings could be added to this particular section, but that other prophets, prophecy, and prophetic books could be to a different section? Or all prophets and prophecy ceased, but inspired prophetic scripture continued to be written? Or both prophets and inspiration ceased, but different prophetic non-scriptural utterances continue. So you can see, even in terms of what's going on with prophets or prophecy, that's kind of ambiguous. But the situation is even worse when you look at the word cessation. What does it mean that they ceased? This too is open to many different possible interpretations. For example, does it mean when you say that all prophets and or prophecy ceased, that it entirely ceased, never to return? So this would be a permanent cessation? Or do you mean that prophets and or prophecy ceased entirely, but it can and did return? So it's a temporary cessation? Or do you mean that prophets and prophecy as a continuous phenomenon at some point ceased, and it continued discontinuously or sporadic afterwards? So this would be a cessation in continuity. Or that the gift of prophecy given the prophets ceased and was given to people not known as prophets. That is, a transference of prophecy. Or that the old covenant prophets ceased and the gift of prophecy was transferred to the prophets of the new covenant. This would be a cessation of old covenant prophecy, or another version of that transference of prophecy. Or that one part of a prophetic group ceased, but prophecy continued with the rest of the group, such as when a prophet died, and yet prophecy continued through his school of prophets, or the oracles given through the high priest breastplate and Urim and Thummim ceased, but the high priest continued to make prophetic utterances. As you can see, even cessation is very ambiguous, and all these different ways can be read and called together under the umbrella term cessation. So prophets or prophecy is ambiguous, cessation also is ambiguous. Both need to be defined, and evidence needs to be brought to establish each point. But the problem is even worse, because often the cessation of prophecy theory is employed to make a statement about the canon, like we saw in this video. So additional argument has to be given, and also additional definition. For example, is every person who authors an inspired work a prophet? Is every author of inspired scripture publicly recognized as a prophet? Or can people not known as prophets, such as priests, scribes, wise men, and women, compose inspired prophetic scripture? Does the cessation of prophecy necessarily entail a cessation of inspiration? All of these things are kind of snuck in to the claim that prophecy ceased, therefore the Deuterocanon can't be scripture. But it needs to be argued and established, but it rarely is. The problem's even more worse because there are other items that need to be established, such as who held to the cessation idea, and when, and why. For example, was this universally accepted among all first century sects of Judaism? Did it include Christianity? And of those sects that did accept it, what authority ought to be given to their view, and why? Did their belief in the cessation of prophecy theory drive the canon, or did the canon drive the cessation of prophecy theory? And this is very important, because if this is a pre-existing universally held belief, then obviously that has connotations to the canon. But what if there was a definition of the canon in rabbinic Judaism, let's say a post-Christian definition like I hold? Then perhaps these later rabbinic traditions could have been added to provide a kind of quasi-historical backing for that definition. So in that case, it would pretty much be meaningless, historically speaking. When did the theory come about? That's another problem, because as you can see, its relationship to the canon would be determined when the theory first appeared. Finally, was it revealed by God, or was it the product of Jewish or Christian tradition? Which is very important, because if it's revealed by God, then there's infallible certainty there. But if this is just an idea that was brought about by either Jews or Christians, that's problematic as well because it could be wrong. Now, that wouldn't disprove the theory, it would just make it weaker. Now, what's amazing about the cessation of prophecy theory is how often it's presented as a given, that it's well defined, everybody understood it, and it de facto rejects the so-called Apocrypha or the Deuterocanon. But as we just shown, there's an awful lot of ambiguity that's never defined. And you have to ask yourself, why? Why is there this ambiguity? Why don't they establish these points? Why just throw this idea out as if it's already a well-established, universally held idea? I believe it's this. And I think this series that we're going to do will establish it. I believe that the cessation of prophecy theory is left ambiguous because the evidence simply doesn't point to it. All the different layers of evidence that we're going to look at it through this series points in many different directions. They affirm different types of cessation. They affirm different types of prophets, prophecy, and so on. And there are also evidence that denies it altogether. And so in order to call as much foundational text in support of the theory, they leave it ambiguous so that they can point to all this evidence and say, see, everyone held to the same thing. But when you look at evidence, you'll see it actually falls apart. There isn't that unity of belief. At least that's my understanding. And hopefully this series will bring that out. So that concludes our first part, looking at the definition of cessation of prophecy. Next video, we're going to look at Old Testament proto-canonical text, both for and against the theory. The following video, we're going to look at Deuterocanonical text, both for and against the theory. We're going to look at the New Testament text, for and against, and then also early church fathers. And then finally, in the last video of this series, we will, maybe even two videos, we'll look at rabbinic evidence for and against the theory. So stay tuned, folks. There's a lot more to come. Thank you so much for watching. And if you haven't done already, please subscribe, like, do all those social media type things because we appreciate it. Also, if you'd like to support me on Patreon, look me up by my name, Gary Machuda, and you will have access to a lot of other information, in-depth research, not only on the Deuterocanon, but other topics as well, like Mary, Purgatory, all sorts of things. So check it out, folks. And again, thank you so much for watching. And God willing, we'll be back again soon. Bye-bye.